And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network covering IU women's basketball. This is our 103rd episode, recorded on Wednesday, January 31st, 2024. And by the way, victorious for the first time ever at Maryland on the road, College Park, however you want to phrase it. A big shout out to the IU women tonight. Third quarter may not have been pretty, but boy, a first-time win on the road at Maryland. Kudos to Coach Morin and the staff. I'm your host, Jeff Marlow, and I'm joined by my co-host, Kathy Amos. Today, we'll be breaking down that big win by your number 10/13 Indiana Hoosiers, 87-73 over Maryland, and that brings their record to 18-2 overall, 9-1 in the Big Ten. And today, we're going to start out, as we do every show, with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And Kathy, I've already previewed it. I'm going right to the fact that it's the first ever win at Maryland at the Xfinity Center. Again, I understand this is not the normal Maryland team we're used to seeing that's battling for, national rankings and top of the Big Ten right there in the battle. But you knew they were going to come out and play hard tonight. I think we shocked them a little bit in the first half. But that third quarter, while a lot of us felt wasn't a good quarter, I'm also taking the viewpoint that, you know what, Maryland's kind of playing for their tournament life right now. They've dragged down to at least Charlie Cream's last bracket, I believe, to 11 seed, basically one of the last four byes, if I remember right. So, but a huge win for this program to go out on the road at Maryland. And I'll be one to say it here. I know we talked about in the preseason. This was one I thought we would win, but it was also one I could see us losing. And without Sydney Parrish, we go out and win the road. Now, they were without Cheyenne Sellers, but we go out and get that win on the road. Our Hoosier Proud banner moment is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network, who includes the Assembly Call and Crimson Cast. Home Field is constantly releasing new schools or updating their products for schools in their existing line. You're bound to find something for you or anyone in your life that just loves great collegiate gear. Not only do you get quality apparel, but you're supporting an Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelley School of Business. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME, HOME23, to get 15% off your entire order. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. And again, the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. And real quick in news, it wasn't a lot of news, but Mackenzie Holmes was named to the Wooden Award top 20 list yesterday. So kudos to Mackenzie for being named to that National Player of the Year list for the second year in a row that Mackenzie has been named to that list. So we're going to throw it over to Kathy for the Amos angle and get her initial thoughts about tonight's game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good night, everyone. Hello. Nice to see you. Those of you here live in the chat, I'm really happy to be here, especially after a great, fantastic road win like that. We really came out, I thought, on fire in that first quarter, and in particular, the first half in general. I thought our defense was on point. Really had a rough go of it. In that third quarter, I thought Maryland made some really tough adjustments that we didn't quite adjust back to, especially defensively. And but we came back in that fourth quarter, and I thought the whole thing too showed so much composure and really great experience from the team, because we did all of this without taking a single timeout during that game. And I know, Jeff, you and I were in the Discord with a few folks, and we thought that they probably should have called one there in that third quarter. But you know what? Coach Morin's been getting paid the big bucks probably for a reason. And she knows her team, and she let them play through it. And they really came back, and especially in that fourth quarter, and really responded. And, I thought your banner moment was spot on. I mean, never having won up there. And yeah, maybe not the Maryland we've come to know the last 3 or 4 years or so, but it's still a fantastic win against a quality program. And I think there are other things we could have talked about. Mackenzie Holmes surpassed her 2,300 point mark, which we'll talk about later in the show. We had that whole string of events in the third quarter, starting with the Maryland technical foul, or in the fourth quarter rather, that the team really went on this nice stretch of play there to build that lead back up. And so I thought there was a lot of banner moments, a lot of good play from a lot of different players tonight. And so I think it'll be really exciting to get into that tonight.
Yeah, and I will say this. I will admit I was in the Discord and our group chat that we have about possibly getting a timeout there. But the more I thought about it, especially as I got away from the game for a few minutes here after it ended, if you have that philosophy sometimes as a coach, and Coach Knight used to have this philosophy, and sometimes I would have it too. If you've got a veteran team, sometimes you got to let them play their way out of it, or at least you're going to let them go as far as you can and play their way out of it. And so while I might have been looking for a timeout a little bit earlier, again, you made a great point, Kathy. She knows her team, and it's a veteran team. And a veteran team shouldn't necessarily, and for lack of a better term, shouldn't need somebody to hold their hand to get through it. The home team making a run in a situation. I think the thing, and Kathy, you and I may get. I don't want to get into this in the numbers. I'll bring it up here. It just the second half lost all the flow. Now, part of that was because we did not do a very good job of moving our feet, but there was a lot of fouls called. We had 14 fouls in the second half, and I thought that took away some of the flow. This team played well in the first half when the game was a little more fluid. It was open. As the second half kind of got to grinding, they really, I thought they lost all their rhythm and just really had a hard time getting it back. But I just kind of, your thoughts about that. I just think again, from the standpoint that the pace and team play and knowing your team, I thought you raised some good points. But what did you think about how the pace of the play, the flow of the game got in the second half?
Yeah, I think it just really got mired down on both ends of the court. Really, I thought there were a lot of fouls that the referees all of a sudden started calling that weren't fouls in that first half. And in particular, I thought more so than what we usually see, I thought there were a lot of fouls away from the ball, which, it's just, again, it takes away the flow of the game. And then not only that, you get people in foul trouble, and there were people in foul trouble, to be candid, on both sides. But there seemed to be just a lot of ticky-tack fouls called, especially in that third quarter, that just kind of took that flow away from the game. In addition, I think for us, the flow was really slowed down because Maryland started that, three-quarter press. And I think we just had a little bit of trouble with that. I would have I think you mentioned this as well, like to seeing them attack that a bit more and be a little more aggressive with it instead of trying to just throw the ball kind of back and forth and get it across, which, they didn't have any 10-second violations. But again, I thought that took us out of the flow of the game for us and our flow of our offense. And we really, we've seen that before. We saw that down in Fort Myers when Princeton did that to us too. And while we never really turned it over per se in that game either, it just takes us out of our offensive flow. And you could really see that. And, I'm sure we'll talk about it either in the pivotal plays or in the numbers where, that third quarter was definitely very crooked in Maryland's favor. Oh, you're on mute, Jeff.
Thank you. And that was one of those that I got from Coach Knight growing up and becoming a young coach. He would always talk about, if somebody wanted to press you, break that front line. That was what he was most concerned about. You didn't want to get picked off, make a turnover in the backcourt. But once you got it to past that front line, attack them at the rim, make them pay. Because once you get there, it's basically 3-on-2, 3-on-1, depending upon how many people they have, in the backside of that. But we kind of got to the point where we got it up on a sideline and we just kind of were like, oh, okay, we'll bring it back out. And so that's why I would have liked to have seen them attack the back end of the pressure a little bit more and maybe get away from being on the sideline so much. That was the other thing too. I never was a big fan of the sideline in that, but sometimes you haven't got any choice. So really quickly, you got anything else you want to discuss in your initial thoughts, or you want to move on to the pivotal plays?
We can go to the pivotal plays.
Okay, we're going to move on to the pivotal plays here, and I'm going to let Kathy go first.
Yeah, so pretty early into that first quarter, about 2.5 minutes in, Lexi Bargesser takes a three-point shot, and we've been pretty critical of her form. And I'm not going to say I think her form is fixed, but you know what? Every once it goes in, and it went in for her tonight. And I think we'll talk hopefully a little bit more about her throughout this. But that was a big three, I think, for her to see her getting some offensive production. She ended up with 9 points on the game. She did a lot of other things that won't show up in the box score, but some that did. And overall, I thought that set the tone for Lexi, and I thought she had a really nice game, again, kind of filling in that starter role for Sydney. So to me, that was a pivotal play just because, again, I think it set the tone for Lexi for the rest of the night.
Yeah, and I don't think any of us had it on our bingo card.
No, definitely not.
I'm going to go to the point where starting with that three, then the next possession off an offensive rebound, Yarden hits a three, and then the next possession, Sarah hits a three. So a quick 9-0 run over about a minute and a half of game time that jumped us out to a 14-2 lead, forced a Maryland timeout. And I really felt like that kind of set the tone, really. Now they come back and make a little run, but I really felt like the energy, the confidence was really set in that first half with that little 9-0 run there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too. And, I was really surprised that Maryland, even after that timeout, they didn't do it on every possession, but they continued to play a lot of zone. And I thought we really made them pay for it in that first half. We ended that first half having shot 8 of 18 3-pointers, or 44%. And I thought that was in large part because of how they were playing zone so often. We were really attacking the middle and then getting it back out to our 3-point shooters. So, I just was really kind of surprised that they didn't make more adjustments. And I guess maybe they wanted to stick with their initial game plan, but they definitely made some adjustments at halftime. So I thought there was a couple really nice moves from Lene in that first quarter as well. She had that really pretty spin move to make it 16-8. But then, she really, I thought was having trouble fouling early before I thought the whistles were flowing a little bit more. And, she got her second foul with two minutes left in that second quarter, and then ended up getting her third foul. 2 minutes left in the first quarter, and got her third foul in that third quarter. And with a short bench already and, shortened with only 9 available players, I thought that could have really spelled a lot of danger for us. And interesting that I think all that fouls ended up setting the tone a little bit for what we were going to see in that second half in particular. So I liked a lot of what I saw from Lene tonight, and just a little bit, again, work on that defensive end. Not surprising, right, for a freshman that she's struggling a little bit defensively and not fouling defensively. But I thought offensively, Lene looked really aggressive. She looked really comfortable with the ball. She's, drove a couple of times getting it to Max. She was, looking a little bit to score. And I really like seeing that from Lene. And again, we've been kind of talking about her all year, but I think this shows us a lot of what could be in her future for us. Seeing her just really, I thought, progressing and continuing her development for this year.
Yeah, I'm going to go down into the second quarter here for my next one. That's Yarden with the steal. Found Sarah Scalio, beautiful bounce pass, nice angle. Sarah filled the lane on the right side and found the found the pass and a layup, and that was. I thought that was huge. Then they turned Maryland over again, and Lexi drove for a layup. So there's, a quick 4-0 run that put them up 30-14 in the second quarter. But again, in a night where I felt like, Yarden struggled a little bit. Even though she shot okay, and she did, she had some rebounds, she had some assists. And maybe it's just because she was another one that got some foul trouble early, that I felt like maybe she struggled when actually the numbers didn't show that she struggled. She, maybe just more neutral than, she wasn't great. She wasn't as, struggling. She was just kind of a neutral on the floor. So I thought that was a big part of the second half or the second quarter. I also had down in there, you look at that first half as a whole, 7 players scored in the first half. I thought the balance was awesome.
Yeah, I did too. I had that written down as well. And in fact, our bench ended up with 8 points in that first half. And I thought that was just really nice to see. We ended up playing all 9 of our players that were available. And our 4 players off the bench, and especially with Lily Meister and Lene Beaumont, I thought they gave some really nice minutes too. And Jules Lamandola actually got in there quite a bit, both Jules and Lene. So both of our 2 freshmen got 12 and 13 points, minutes rather, respectively. And I thought there was some really nice play from both of those players, especially as freshmen on the road. It was nice to see they didn't seem to be afraid of the moment. And it was really great to see Coach Moore, and to be quite, comfortable and trusting of them to put them in this moment. It is a big game in terms of standings. It was a big game in terms of history and being on the road. It was nice to see that we got, 4 players in there with 2 of them in double digit minutes.
Yeah, I want to come back to that in a little bit. I think more
Yeah.
of the notable numbers there. So, what else you got for a pivotal play? Maybe jump into the second
Um,
half here.
Yeah, let's jump into the second half. So again, we came out and Lexi started with a really nice pass down to Mackenzie low, and Mackenzie ended up scoring. I thought, oh, this is going to be great. But then all of a sudden, Maryland just really picked up their D, and we started really turning the ball over. We ended up with 13 turnovers, and I got it written down here. Yeah, 8 of them were in that second half. And so I just was, really thought that Maryland just kept chipping away, and chipping away. And that defense in particular really picked up. And so, it just never seemed in that third quarter we could string a play after a play together, right, on either end. So right after the media timeout, as an example, Chloe Moore McNeil drives and then gets 2 and was fouled, which was a great play. And she makes it a free throw to get back to 62-47. But then we go on the other end and we just immediately let Maryland score again. So we just never could seem to get those, string of good offense followed up by some stops on the defensive end to really, really build that lead back up. And I think at one point Maryland had gotten the lead cut down to 7 in that third quarter. So it got a little, little concerning there for me, and just a lot of the fouls, I think, again in that third quarter.
I don't remember ever getting to 7. You may be right. I just remember getting to 9 at the end of the quarter. But
Yeah,
it was
it
one
was
of those.
definitely not.
It was one of those that I felt like it just almost became like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Anytime they felt like they tried to play defense, they got called for a foul. And I'm not blaming the officials per se. The whistles did change a little bit in the second. I was just looking at that. There 25, I think it was 2014. 15, sorry, 29 fouls called in the second half on both teams. So the whistles changed a little bit, but I just think it was every time and I felt like it was one of those games in the third quarter, Kathy, where we just were struggling to contain the drive again. Maryland was really just almost at times putting their head down and trying to go. And we were a half a step slow, or we wouldn't get squared up. We were always kind of a 45-degree angle trying to slide and just really putting ourselves in some bad positions defensively from that standpoint. But I will agree with you in terms of the third quarter, just the turnovers. And when you told me 13 turnovers, I think it was, you said, it felt like way more than that, didn't it? I mean, it
It
really
did.
felt, especially in
Yeah.
that third quarter and with how many it was. But other than that quarter, I felt like the offense, it looked pretty decent. Now we didn't shoot it well, and again, I want to save some of that for the notable numbers. But we moved the ball and we made some nice passes. But just that third quarter, that was a tough quarter offensively and defensively. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the fourth quarter here, early in the fourth quarter, and I thought maybe one of the big plays, if it wasn't the tech, 8.5 minutes to go. Ball's loose on the floor. Matt gets on the floor and forces a jump ball, which gets us a possession. And I can't remember us doing much off of that, whether we scored or not. But the fact that
We
Mac
did.
was willing to get on the floor and try to create a tie up tells you that the game had gotten to the point where, hey, we got to get, if we were still up 20, you may not see that. But Mac hopping and jumping on the floor for that to tie up that loose ball, it told you a little bit about how much you felt each possession at that point was huge.
Yeah, I agree. I think we did end up scoring after we got that jump ball. I didn't write it down, but I remember that play too. It was right, not too long into it. And I think we had missed the shot and Maryland got the rebound, but they kind of fumbled it. And there were 2 Maryland players going after it and then Mac all jumping on the floor for it. And it was really great. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and talk about that whole sequence there, starting at 7:06 where, Mackenzie's down low and they called a foul, or was it going to be a jump ball? Not really sure. But one of the players from Maryland gets called for a technical foul. Sarah Scallion goes to the line, makes both of them, makes it 74-65. And then Yarden comes back. They get the ball back. Now we have a long 2 from Yarden, makes it 76-65. Down on the other end, more great defense from Lexi. She steals the ball and then she finds Yarden on the break for 2 more to force Maryland out of it into a timeout, making it 78-65. And so there was 3 great offensive possessions in a row there where we ended up scoring, plus some tough defense on the other end, forcing a miss shot and getting a steal. And I thought that set the tone really for the rest of the quarter. And I think it kind of deflated Maryland, to be quite honest. I mean, they were also playing shorthanded with Sellers out, and I think it was Brown ended up kind of getting banged up as well, so they were shorthanded as well. And I think that whole comeback in the third quarter then followed up with the way we started that fourth quarter into that 3 minutes. But that sequence of event, I think, just took kind of the air out of the balloon, if you will, for Maryland. They probably spent so much money. Energy trying to get back into the game that I just don't think they had anything left in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, and then just kind of down the stretch, Sarah Scalia hitting a ton of free throws, starting with those two there, as like you said, and then I think she hit 4 more free throws down the stretch as well. So she was, and so that was big to kind of help put the game away. I thought the defense just got locked in better too in the fourth quarter. I really don't have any specific plays from there on. I just think the defense got locked in a little bit better. You notice, for example, in the fourth quarter, we only allowed them 14 points. And, you can live with that. 14 points in a quarter is something that any team that's, whether it's in the Big Ten or high school or wherever, if you give up 14 in a quarter, you can live with that number.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so outside of that kind of lopsided third quarter where we were outscored 16-29, we held Maryland well under 20 points per quarter. So 14, 16, and then 14 again. So I know that Coach Morin's not going to be happy with the defense of the third quarter, but I think the other first, second, and fourth, the defense was actually really pretty good, keeping them in those teen numbers. And keeping them down low. I think if we would have just had a little bit more in that third quarter, we would have held them well under, in the 60s or even below in this game. So overall, I thought it was, 3/4 of a defensively good played game.
Well, in those 3 quarters you're talking about, they're plus 27. Now, I know they only ended up winning by 14 because of the third quarter. You can't take that out. But when they played their best tonight, they were plus 27 on the road. Think about that. They were against a team that everybody thought was going to be a top of the half, top third of the league team. And right now they're not, but you still win it. Like I said at the beginning, you win in some place that you had never won before. And this is a team that we just beat for the first time ever a couple years ago. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not like there's a lot of history here for Indiana to bank on and to kind of pull from. So with that, Kathy, let's move on to the notable numbers, and I'll let you go first.
All right. I think we've talked quite a bit, a lot of them, but I'm actually going to talk about a first half number, which was 59%. And that was our field goal shooting. We ended, I was just very surprised that Maryland continued to play zone and they really ratcheted it back up on us, but we still ended up shooting 49% from in field goal range, including 35% from 3. Again, that really slowed down. We ended up only making 1 3-pointer in the second half. Again, I thought Maryland made some really nice defensive adjustments, but still to go on the road and shoot 49% from 2, and I think 35% from 3, I'll take that most nights on the road. I thought the shooting tonight was actually pretty good, and the shot selection was smart as well.
Yeah, the only thing about the 3-point shooting you're going to talk about here is the fact that they started out 6 for 14. They were 3 for 12 over the last 3 quarters. So that, that's one of those that is kind of I'll take the 35%, but when they started out shooting 43%, you were like, oh, this is going to be a pretty good night. From that standpoint.
I think a lot of that though was the change in Maryland's defense. I thought, again, like I mentioned, that 3/4 length press, I thought that really took us out of the rhythm. And I think that was a huge part of it. It's just we weren't getting as easy and open shots as we were in that first quarter or the first half, I thought. Yeah.
I'm going to go again. Another one that we talked a little bit about. We've talked a lot about throughout the season, and Indiana was +9 tonight in rebounding. We had 33 rebounds to their 24 with that. So, again, I'm never going to complain when we out rebound the other team. When we start getting up to near +10. I'm pretty happy with that. And I thought, again, you look at it again, I try not to get into too many single numbers, but Mackenzie ends up with a double-double tonight. And so she was, and that's been one thing we haven't really talked a lot about Kathy and we try and never really be critical of the players on the show, and unless we absolutely have to. But I just felt like that's been one area that Mac hasn't been as strong at this year is her rebounding. I mean, last year it felt like she was right around 8, 9, 10 rebounds almost every game. And there have been some games this year where she hasn't been, and sometimes it just doesn't come to you. I get that. You can be blocking out perfectly well and it just doesn't come to you. But in these last few games, she's been right around 10 rebounds a game. And I think that's a big key for this team as they play some of these better teams is Mac has to be dominating on the glass. And I thought she has the Purdue game, Northwestern game, and now here tonight, another good night on the glass. So that was a number I want to go to. I'll give you a chance to put in another one.
Yeah. So the other one I guess we should probably talk a little bit about is turnovers. And I've already touched on a little bit. They had 5 in the first half, but then again, Maryland kicks up that defense. We just really kind of struggled with it and ended up with 13, and it ended up with 13 points off of turnovers for them. But on the flip side of that, we also, forced 12 Maryland turnovers and scored 14 points off of those. So in terms of points off turnovers, it ended up being about even 14 for us and 13 for them. So really not too upset about that, other than I thought some of those came kind of untimely in that third quarter and letting them get back into it. But there's just one other number, I guess, for me, I really wanted to talk about, and that was 12, which is our bench points. And again, maybe it doesn't sound like a whole lot when we have 87 points total, but there have been so many games that you and I have talked on the podcast afterwards, and we're like, we didn't get anything from our bench, right? And not only did we get 12 from the bench, but we got 9 points from Lexi, who, just started filling in, starting for Sydney. And, if we look back at that last game, we had almost, I think everyone scored in that last game that we played, except for Lexi. So it was nice to see tonight having 7 of our players scoring, including Lexi with 9 and including 12 from our bench. So those were probably some of the big numbers that kind of jump out to me.
I'm going to go kind of this. I'm going to go the other way on that. I mean, I'm more of a surprise number here, and I did not realize this, but Lily Meister only 4 minutes tonight. And I felt Lily played a very solid time on the floor. I would have thought for sure she played way more than 4 minutes. Not like she played 25, but when I start looking at the box, and she only played 4 minutes, but she had 6 points. She didn't miss a shot, didn't miss a free throw. She had 1 rebound. I call that a pretty productive night. I'm just really shocked at that. But again, Mackenzie was playing pretty well. And I think, again, you go back, and this is where I want to kind of go. I'll double up on this, and Kathy, get your thoughts before you give another one. 4 players tonight. This is a little bit of something we've talked about in the past. We talked a little bit about on Sunday coming out of the Northwestern game, because it got to be kind of tight in the second half. Third quarter didn't go as well. And I think this is probably why Lily didn't get as much run. But 4 players today and played over 30 minutes. Whereas on Sunday, again, blowout, Lene was the only one who played over 30 minutes. And here tonight, Lene and Jules get about 12 minutes apiece, 12 and 13. But 4 players tonight over 30 minutes, and 3 of them were over 35. So there just wasn't a lot of bench minutes going out there outside of foul trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Except for Yarden, who had to sit quite a bit more with her foul. She was the only one under the 30-minute mark. So, I was too. I thought Lily actually played more than the 4 minutes that she was in there. But yeah, I kind of thought that she would get in a little bit more, especially in that first half, to give Mackenzie a bit of a break, especially when we had built up, a double-digit lead pretty well into that second quarter. But and that says a lot about Lily, that she came in and scored her 6 points in 4 minutes. Between her and Lene, we got our 12 bench points. So just really was actually pleased with the little bit of play that she got in there. So hopefully we'll be able to see her a little bit more going forward. But again, not surprising with Coach Moore in that she went with her veteran Mackenzie Holmes during this game. But yeah, she did end up playing 36 minutes.
You got anything else?
I don't think so. I don't think I have any other team stats I'd want to touch on right now.
I'm going to touch on a couple things here then, because I do have, one is a team stat, 79% at the free throw line. And for a team that we've been on here a few times talking about their lack of free throw shooting, they shot 79% at the free throw line. So again, another couple of games. So maybe we're starting to see a little turnaround, Mackenzie was 7 for 8. Sarah was 8 for 9. We mentioned Lily's 2 for 2. So, that was that. And then also I want to point out, you talked a little bit about this. I want to come back to it here. Lene Beaumont and Jules Lamandola. And Jules, I thought at times was struggling, but I think it was more because she was fouling on the defensive end. I felt that way. You look at it, they combined 25 minutes, 6 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists with that. So they were putting up some numbers when they were on the floor. They just unfortunately were putting up fouls as well.
Right. Yeah. But to be fair, who wasn't?
Yeah. Especially in the second half.
Yeah, especially the second half on our team. There were very few people that played, other than, Hannah Sandvik and Lily Meister, who only played a collective 7 minutes total. Everybody had at least 1 foul. So, yeah.
I'm not trying to rub you, but I also think that now, but in fairness to Coach Morin, if Lene doesn't pick up 2 fouls in the first quarter and doesn't pick up her 3rd foul in the second quarter, she may get more runs. She may end up with 18, 19, 20 minutes because but she was saddled with foul trouble. And that's what we talked about in that post game on Sunday. We got away with it tonight. I just don't think, with the limited depth that we have right now, you can't have players getting fouls at such a rate. And I know some of it's the way the officials are calling the game. I get that, but you have to adjust, and you can't just keep fouling. Some of it's fresh mistakes, but you got to get rid of those. And especially right now, and we're going to Columbus on Sunday. I don't think you can have that kind of foul trouble, but oh well, I digress.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we ended up with 3 players with 4 fouls, and they were all starters. And 2 of them, were our senior players, Chloe Moore McNeil and Mackenzie Holmes. Both had 4 fouls, and Yarden was the only one. I thought Yarden in particular really just felt off defensively to me tonight. And, she seemed a step slow, and, kind of hip checked on one of her fouls. And I thought she was kind of struggling a little bit with it tonight. But, she also had some really nice assists for us and things, and some good rebounding. So overall, I thought she was okay. It's just defensively, I felt like she was a little bit off her normal game tonight, personally.
I would agree. As well. But again, you look at her stats outside of the foul trouble. She had a solid night. Like I said, when I started looking at her stats, I didn't feel like she was as, struggled as much as I thought she did. So it's one of those games. I think the third quarter, Kathy, made us all feel that way about a lot of them.
That's true. Very fair.
So you got any other notable numbers?
Nope. I think I'm set there.
All right, let's move on to our Game Ball Award. And for those of you who are watching on the YouTube feed, Kathy has it pulled up. And right now, and my eyes are not as good as they used to be. I believe Mackenzie Holmes leads the way with 8 game balls. And then Sarah Scalia with 4, Sydney Parrish with 3, Yarden Garzone 2, and Chloe Moore McNeil with 1 game ball here. And Kathy, I'm going to let you go first here on the game ball tonight.
Yeah. For me, this one was a pretty easy one. I'm going with Mackenzie Holmes, at her 6th double-double of the year, ended up with 23 points, leading the team, just one ahead of Sarah Scalia. She had, again, 10 rebounds, and I thought some of those rebounds were really tough rebounds. She's on the floor, diving for loose balls, had 2 steals. Her only blemish was 4 turnovers, I thought. And to be honest, I'm kind of surprised she even had 4 turnovers. I don't remember her having that many. I remember
all in the third quarter.
Yeah, it must have been the third quarter. It seemed like everyone was having them in that one. But, in 7, though, her 10 rebounds were offensive rebounds too. And I thought she was just really aggressive on the glass tonight, at least on the offensive end for sure. So to me, Mackenzie had just a really great all around game for us. So she gets my game ball.
Yeah, I'm going to second that. I mean, we could talk about Sarah Scalia here, 38 minutes. She scored 22 points. But after her start in the first quarter, kind of in the middle of the second quarter, I felt like she, and again, I'd say disappeared, but there are just times when Sarah's not hitting shots. She is very streaky anyway, but there are just times where I feel like she almost just, she goes, and just becomes part of the environment. And then when she does shoot one and she misses it, you're kind of like, oh, she's cold. But she's also the type of kid that as soon as she hits one, she may make the next 3. So you want her to keep shooting it. But 8 of 9 at the line, 4 of 8 from 3. She had 5 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, a turnover. She had to have, excuse me, for the 22 points. She did have a turnover, but I'm going to go with you. I'm going to make it unanimous here tonight. Mackenzie Holmes for the game ball, but I did think we needed to mention Sarah's effort there as well with that. So Mackenzie Holmes will get her 9th game ball of the year here from the Doing the Work. We're going to move on to the Grace Berger Hardest Worker Award. And again, if you're following along with the other workaholics here on the YouTube live feed, you can see the scroll at the bottom. And this is one that, again, some of the nice things here to have lots of people who are involved for the hardest worker. But right now, Sydney Parrish leads with 5, Mackenzie Holmes with 4, Chloe Moore McNeil 3, Lexi Bargesser and Sarah Scalia and Lene Beaumont with 2 each, and Lily Meister with 1. So those are our game ball our hardest worker recipients so far. And I'm going to let Kathy go again first tonight since I'm doing the hosting duties.
Yeah, Jeff, this one was a little bit harder for me to kind of think through. So, Sarah, again, I thought could have definitely been a candidate here with her 22 points. But, I think always the hardest worker doesn't necessarily go to the second highest scoring player on the team. I think Chloe Moore McNeil was pretty good for the most part on defense. But, again, I thought she had that foul bug biter, but again, who didn't? It ended up with 10 points here. But I actually am landing here on Lexi Bargesser. She ended up again with 9 points for us, but not just the 9 points. She only had 1 turnover, and she was handling the ball quite a bit. She had 2 steals, only fouled 2 times, and I thought she was really good on defense as well. But my other number that I really liked from her is 6 assists. So I thought she's coming in and now filling a role that, just a couple of games ago, she was not being asked to fill, which is now being a starter and playing starter minutes. She played 31 minutes again tonight. She played the most of anybody on the team in the last game. And that's just not, what she was probably expected to do this year. And I thought the performance she did for us tonight was really quite on. She even made that 3-pointer, another field goal. She a couple of field goals. Actually, she was 4 of 6 from field goal range. So to me, I thought she had a nice game for us tonight. So Lexi Bargesser gets my vote for hardest worker.
Yeah, and I will also throw in here. We talked about Lene a little bit. I would throw Lene in here just to mention. Again, she finished with 6 points, 2 of 4 from the field. She was only 2 of 4 at the line, and she had 2 assists, but in 12 minutes. So I thought Lene gave us a good effort. But I agree with you. I was going to go with Lexi Bargesser here tonight just because she provided some scoring, and with that, as like you said, she had a 6-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. She also had 2 rebounds and 2 steals, as you mentioned. So I'm going to make that unanimous and go with Lexi Bargesser. And I believe that becomes her 3rd hardest worker award.
That's right. Yep. So, that's her 3rd. Yeah.
So congrats to Lexi Bargesser.
Yes. Absolutely.
So real quick, we're going to kind of turn it over to Kathy here because this has become her kind of her, not her hobby, her project, her project, because she's the one that really put all this together and kind of came up with this idea. So we'll turn it over to Kathy for Mac Watch as she gets nearer to the all-time scoring record.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that, in that 3rd quarter, Mackenzie got her 2,300 points. So she ended up scoring a few more than that. She is now at 2,306. So she is 58 points now behind to tie for first, or 59 points to take over first place. So again, if she continues on her average that she's at right now, that'll be just under 3 games, which puts her around the Purdue game to breaking that record. So again, if she continues averaging right around 20 points, she will get that in the Purdue game. The other number we've been keeping an eye on is where she's moving up in the rebounding ranks. So with her 10 rebounds tonight, she now has 921 rebounds in her career. And she needs 924 to take 5th place. So I'm pretty confident in the next game against Ohio State, she'll get her 3 rebounds and move up in that ranking for 5th place. And then we'll start taking a look at what she needs for 4th place. So no block shots tonight. So she's probably going to stick around that 2nd place and total blocks in her career, which is kind of what we expected anyway. It was a pretty big gap for her to fill, but still overall, just a nice double-double for Mac, her 3rd one, or excuse me, 6th one of the year.
So again, as Mackenzie Holmes closes in on an all-time record, and again, I'm going to have to take this weekend, especially and maybe Saturday if I get an opportunity. I'm going to have to go back and look at her numbers a little bit because again, she needs a lot of games, but it is not out of the realm of the possibility if she keeps averaging over 20 that she could get very near Calvert Cheney's all-time school record, which would be a really interesting number to achieve. I'm not saying she'll get there because I think you'd have to make a deep run in the Big Ten tournament, probably have to get to the Elite Eight, with that. So, and average 20, 20 plus. So, with that, but man, Mac's career is going to go down. I mean, I think we're going to talk about this at the end of the season. She's on the Mount Rushmore, especially, of the Terry Morin era, she's going to be on the Mount Rushmore. So, but she's going to be on the Mount Rushmore of all Indiana women's basketball players. So thanks, Kathy, for keeping us updated on the MAC Watch. That's a lot of fun. Let's move on. We're going to talk about our next opponent, and our next podcast will be on Sunday after this game. The women travel to Ohio State, to Columbus to take on the Buckeyes. Sunday, February the 4th, 12 Eastern start. Noon Eastern, I should say. Don't want anybody to confuse that think they're playing at midnight, right? It's maybe a name of a Taylor Swift album, but we're not playing at that time of night. But yeah, noon. You can tell I've been watching the NFL. Noon Eastern start, 11 Central. That game is on FS1. So it's a Fox broadcast, FS1. So you'll be able to catch it over there. Ohio State plays tomorrow. And I'm trying to remember who they play. I've got it down here a little bit farther. I didn't put it in this part of the run sheet. They're playing Wisconsin at home tomorrow. So it really they should win that game. But right now they're 8-1 in the league, half game behind Indiana. Iowa is actually playing right now against Northwestern. They're 8-1. And so, but realistically, all three teams will be tied still after the night. Ohio State's currently number 15 in the net. Ohio State leads this series all time, 59-24. This is one of the few teams that Indiana had such a huge deficit that Terry Morin's teams are playing catch up on a lot of these series records, but Ohio State has just dominated this series over the years. And Ohio State is 33-6 against Indiana in Columbus. Ohio State won the last matchup on March 4th of 2023 at the Big Ten tournament, 79-75, after Indiana blew a huge halftime lead. The Ohio State pressure just got to them. If you all remember that game, Mackenzie, if I remember right, did not play much in that game. But that was a game that we all were kind of, disappointed with the way that it went in the second half. IU had won the previous 5 in a row, though, and the series is 5-5 over the last 10. This is the only regular season matchup. So, Kathy, before I turn it over here to talk about some of their personnel, this could be huge in terms of seeding for the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, I mean, overall, not just the seeding for the Big Ten tournament, but yeah, to your point, the seeding, which is the standings in the conference play, to your point. Iowa's going to win their game. By the way, they're up by 95-63 with 4.5 minutes to go. So Iowa's going to win. And, assuming Ohio State wins, you got 3 teams again right there at 9-1. And so this is going to be huge for those standings. And we already saw what Ohio State did to Iowa when Iowa came into Ohio to play, so into Columbus. So I think this is going to be probably one of our toughest challenges that we've had this year, right up there with Stanford and Iowa. So I think it's going to be very interesting and hopefully a much better game than we saw from those two.
I agree. So do you want to talk about their personnel a little bit?
Sure, I can do that. So Ohio State's really led by 3 main people. So we have J.C. Sheldon, Cody McMahon, who was freshman of the year last year, and then Taylor Theory. So J.C. Sheldon is back. She is 5'10", graduate guard. She is averaging right now 17.6 points per game, which is 5th in the league. She's also averaging 3 assists per game, which is 20th in the league, 2 steals per game, which is 2nd in the league. And she shoots at 51% field goal percentage, which is 7th. And she can shoot free throws too. So you don't want to foul her. She's an 88% free throw shooter. In 2022, because she was on the All Big Ten first team and All Big Ten defensive team Last year she was hurt and missed a big chunk of the game. But even the year before that, she was on the All Big Ten second team. So she's definitely, to me, seems to be the leader. And as JC seems to go, a lot of it is the way Ohio State goes. But I think the same can be said of Cody McMahon. So Cody McMahon is a 6-foot sophomore forward. She's currently averaging right at 14 points per game, which is 17th in the league, and 6 rebounds per game at 15th in the league. She's also as I mentioned, Big Ten Freshman of the Year last year, but it was also on the Big Ten second team and on the All Big Ten tourney team as well last year. And then lastly, Taylor Theory is their other player that you'll really want to keep an eye on. She's a 6'1" junior. She is averaging right at 12.7 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game. And then she was on the second team All Big Ten last year, also on the All Big Ten defensive team and the All Big Ten tourney team. So I think those three combined are kind of the three-headed head of their monster, if you will, in Ohio State. And I think the thing we'll have to really watch out for, which we've had trouble with Princeton and then saw a little bit again tonight, is their press. So Ohio State will, I'm sure, come out and press. They do that right away. And until teams show that they can break it and are hurting Ohio State by pressing, they probably won't pull that press off of us. So that's at least my prediction. That's what I've kind of seen from the couple of games I've watched of them this year. So those are the three personnel that you really want to keep an eye on for Ohio State.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to. Yeah, I'll come back to that, but I just wanted to talk about that personnel real quick. I think McMahon she's a great player, but you look at some of her numbers, she struggled a little bit to shoot the ball with that. And I remember saying this last year, that if you could get JC Sheldon back healthy, Ohio State became a whole lot better team. And that's when they got her back, kind of the last game or two of the regular season. They played her a little bit more in the Big Ten tournament. And then they made a nice run in the NCAA tournament because JC Sheldon basically got healthy enough to play. You got to find a way to control JC Sheldon, in my opinion, because she's the guard. Taylor Theory as well, but especially Sheldon. She's kind of that penetrator. And as already pointed out in the Workaholics episode, I was going to mention, this is the one thing this team has struggled with really since we started the show, or at least as we started the show over the last 3 years. Teams with athletic or determined guards who are going to put the ball on the deck and dribble drive have given us issues. Now, we've had some success with Ohio State over the last 5-6 games because Mac has had huge games because Kevin McGuff has basically tried to play straight up with Mac, and she's gone for like 30 a couple times. But we've always done a pretty decent job of really controlling their drive, and we have not turned it over a ton against their press. But then you go back to the Big Ten tournament game, we turned it over a ton in the second half. So I'll go back to the stats here real quick. Offensively, they're fourth in the league, just over 81 points a game. They're fifth in the league defensively at about just under 64 a game. They're fifth in the league in field goal percentage. They're sixth in defensive field goal percentage. So they're middle of the pack here. They are not a great they're a so-so defensive team. But they're so good at making teams turn it over that that's where a lot of their stuff comes from. They're 10th in 3-point field goal percentage. So they are going to shoot it great from deep. But again, you never know when you play them. And then they are second in opposing teams field, and they're on their defensive end. So they hold teams to 29% on the three. And we know IU is going to shoot the three a lot. They're 72% at the line. They are just above Indiana in terms of free throw percentage at 10th. So maybe Indiana's actually passed them after tonight. This one's one, Kathy, that I was really shocked by. They're basically even on their glass. They're plus 0.1 rebounding margin, 0.1, they're 12th in the league in rebounding margin. So that one really surprised me, but they're second in turnover margin. They're plus 7. They force 21 turnovers a game. And so you get your thoughts on some of those team stats.
Yeah, I was a little surprised actually that their defensive numbers weren't higher. I thought I always think of when I think of Ohio State is defensive, but I think it's more shows up in their turnover margin. With that plus 7 being second in the league, I think they really have a propensity to turn people over at that press up there. So I think that this is going to be an interesting game for us because we do generally rely on that 3-point shooting so much, but they're such a good 3-point defending team, like you mentioned, only holding their opponents to only 29%. So I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup for us because I'm pretty concerned, to be honest, about, like you mentioned, their driving. And I think Cody McMahon, if I remember correctly, last year, we just had a lot of trouble with her. Another athletic player. I know she's technically a forward, not a guard, but still really athletic. And so who are we going to put on her? Because I would expect Chloe to be on JC Sheldon personally. So you're going to have Chloe on JC. So is Yarden going to get that matchup? Because if Yarden and Cody McMahon are going at it, I'm a little concerned that that's going to be too much for Yarden to handle defensively. Do you have any thoughts on kind of some of the matchups we might think we could see?
Yeah, I mean, that's really about the only person. If she was healthy, it's Sydney. I really think Sydney's who you would see on it. But I think Yarden gets it by default. Except now, do you try to trust Lexi Bargesser enough to guard JC Sheldon? And then you try to put Chloe over on Cody McMahon. Those are some good, those are some good questions. And we said this at the beginning of the year. We said this a couple of times throughout the podcast season, Kathy, that on paper, we both felt Ohio State was the best team in the league, talent-wise and everything. So this is going to be a tough game, even with a healthy Sydney Parrish going into Columbus, and with that. So, but they're giving themselves a chance. And I want to kind of get your thoughts on this. I'll go through this a little bit. Her hoop stats, I did the numbers today. I have a hard time accessing it at school, but Indiana they have Indiana with a 54% chance of winning. 74-72 is their prediction, which I really was shocked by because I thought it would be an Ohio State would be the favorite and have maybe a 6 or 7 point margin just for the home court. I think they're even. You look at these numbers. IU's 8th in the HSA, her hoop stats rating. Ohio State's 14th. Offensive efficiency, IU's 11th. Ohio State's 20th. Defensive efficiency, IU 64. Ohio State's 66. Effective field goal percentage, IU 2nd. Ohio State's 26. Points per possession, IU 3rd, Ohio State 18. I mean, you just look at these numbers, and I'll kind of stop there. I mean, on paper, we've said we think Ohio State's good, but you look at these kind of efficiency type numbers and tempo numbers, this is really has the potential to be a real barn burner down to the wire game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we just have an interesting matchup because, our dominant player is someone that's in the post and their dominant player is a guard. But our best defensive player is also a guard. So neither team really rebounds a whole lot. I think they're probably going to play quite a bit of fast pace, or they're going to want to push the ball. But on the other end, I think they're going to try to slow us down again with the press and taking us out of our offensive rhythm. So who is going to be able to counter who? Like, can our defense slow them down enough? And can our transition D, kind of slow them down versus is their press really going to take us out of our game plan and what we want to do offensively and, keep us from hitting the 3-point shot? Or are we going to be able to break the press? Like we've seen they've been able to do. Like, it's interesting to me with the Big Ten tournament last year, because that first half, we looked amazing against their press, and the second half we didn't. So which team are we going to get? Because I think, to me, that's going to be the key to the game. In addition to, can we slow at least one of JC Sheldon or Cody McMahon down? I think those two in particular, I'm kind of nervous about in the matchups we have. So usually we come in here talking about the rebounding being a key. I don't know it's as important in this game since Ohio State's not so strong on the glass, but what kind of keys are you going to be kind of looking for on Sunday?
First of all, turnovers, because we can't turn it over 21 times against them.
Right.
And secondly, I think rebounding is rebounding is a big one here because IU has kind of moved up the ranking here in the Big Ten. They were like 4th or 5th today when I looked at it, and they were up +9 today. So things are relative. No, I won't say IU's a great rebounding team, but right now we may be a better rebounding team than the team we're playing on Sunday. So you got to take advantage of that if you can, and without fouling. You got to be able to do without fouling. That'll be the other thing I'm going to look at.
That's a good point. I guess what I was meant with the rebound, I don't think it's as important as when we were playing some of the other teams.
That's true.
It's not the place where I'm going to be keen and on watching. But yes, turnovers for sure. But I really want to see defensively how we match up with Ohio State, and can we ratchet up our defense?
I'm also curious to see how well we shoot the ball from the three, because this is a team that shoots the three, and they're second in defensive percentage. So on the three ball. So can we be
Right.
above average?
So
Can we
we're
be?
excited about everything, is what you're saying.
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, but
I
can we
think
hit
we are.
threes? Yeah, if
Yeah,
we can hit,
I think
if
so.
we can hit three, maybe you're right. But it's what we do here. We get concerned about everything. So
We
let's
can.
go around the Big Ten real quick here.
Yeah.
Tonight, Illinois. It's kind of been the team everybody was, we thought was going to be decent, and then they got off to a terrible start, and now they're starting to put together a little bit of a run. They go into Ann Arbor and beat Michigan 77-64, avenging a loss from back in December when Michigan just blew them out in Champaign. Nebraska wins again tonight at home. Again, shocker. Nebraska wins at home 68-54
Right.
over what's got to be classified right now as a disappointing Purdue team. I think that drops them like 2-8 in the league.
Well, I'm not disappointed in them.
No. But I think if we're being, we're not, because we're not objective on here. But if we were talking, remember, but back at the beginning of the season, we thought
Right.
Purdue would be one of those teams in that mix for 6 or 7.
We did. Yeah. They're
but yeah,
12th.
I'm not crying any tears. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
And then Penn State goes into Minneapolis tonight and wins 80-64. So if you look at, and we already talked about this, Wisconsin plays Ohio State in Columbus tomorrow. Saturday, Michigan goes to Penn State and Iowa goes to Maryland. So those will be a couple games to keep an eye on, especially Saturday. Right now, I've updated the standing schedule. I want to kind of get your thoughts about this. Iowa, IU, and IU are 9-1. Ohio State, I won't put them to 9-1 yet, but by all means, they should be on Sunday, tied with Indiana at 9-1. But Penn State now is kind of separated a little bit from that other part. They're 7-3 in the league. They're 2 games behind, but they're kind of starting to settle into being that 4th best team in the league. And they're the ones I really want to come back to you with a little bit. Michigan State and Nebraska are both 6-4. So there's still some possibilities there, but Michigan kind of has fallen behind at 5-5. So I want to get your thoughts about the league race, where it is with those 3 teams at the top, but also your thoughts about Penn State.
Yeah. I mean, the 3 teams are the 3 teams. I don't think we talked at all about Penn State in the offseason. Certainly not where we thought they would be. I know we didn't do any in-depth preview of them. Now with Owusu back, in addition to Marisa being back for them, we've been saying this for a couple of weeks. Don't sleep on them. And, they showed it again tonight going into Minnesota, who, Minnesota has shown in a couple of games that they're not the same Minnesota we've kind of seen all the last few years. But they handled them quite well in Minnesota up at the barn, 80-64. So I really think Penn State, is the team to watch, especially when we get to that Big Ten tournament. Now I think they maybe don't have quite the games left to be able to make up, unless Ohio State or us or Iowa kind of trip a little bit down the stretch here. But I think they're going to be a team I would really want to keep an eye on in that Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, and I was going to mention here in in Minnesota's defense a little bit. Mara Braun is out for the season with a broken foot. That's a huge injury for them, and may very well sink their hopes of making the NCAA tournament, unfortunately for them. But Kathy, I totally agree with you. I posted this on Twitter the other day. It might have been on my personal account, but I think I might have done the Doing the Work account. Penn State may not win the league, but and IU doesn't play them again. But none of those top 3 teams really want to see Penn State down the stretch or in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't want to face them right now. I'm glad we got them when we did. That's for sure.
Yeah.
They're my team to watch in the Big Ten tournament for sure.
Yep. So Kathy, I'll throw it to you for some final thoughts here.
Yeah. So overall, again, just congratulations again to our women, being down Sydney Parrish, not knowing how they, bounce back from that. She's still on crutches, so no timeline for her return. And Lexi's filled in. The bench really came up and put in some great minutes, at least, Jules and Lene for us in particular. Even the few minutes I thought Sandvik and Meister came in. And so we talked about this on the last show where we thought replacing Sydney was going to be a collective effort. And I think we got that tonight, right? We got it in combination from Lene and Lexi Vargasser. Combined, they went for 15 points together offensively. Lexi's just been, locked in always on defense. Plus she's really sharing the ball really well. So I think this team is really picking up and filling in for Sydney. collectively, like we kind of expected. We weren't expecting Lexi to come in and have all the rebounds or do everything that Sydney was doing, but I think collectively they're doing that. And they looked well tonight. They weathered that storm in that third quarter. They made some nice adjustments going into the fourth quarter and ended up going and into a place they've never won before and getting a 14-point win. So overall, just a great win for this team again, and just excited to see this matchup, obviously, on Sunday against Ohio State.
Yeah, I really think you said it awesome. You said it great. I really, there's not a lot there for me to add other than I just think that it's an awesome thing what Terry Moore has been able to build. And again, I know the third quarter was not pretty tonight, but they had a 22-point lead at the half at Maryland. I mean, that cushion was also one reason why she didn't have to take a timeout in the third quarter, because you had such a big cushion. But it just, the next person up mentality. And again, we had some doubts. I mean, I won't be the first to say we were kind of like not sure that Lexi's ready for this moment. Well, she played well against Northwestern on Sunday, which, again, Northwestern is not playing well, but she came out on the road at Maryland and played a really solid game. So that gives you more and more confidence that she's ready for this. And it just bodes well for the future because Lexi's going to be a bigger part of the plan next year and the year after. And so I really, kudos to Lexi and just kudos to everybody to go out there and get a win. Tough environment in terms of the way the second half went, especially with the fouls and the pace and everything. It would have been very easy to get frustrated and be like, everything's against us. Let's just give up. Yeah. Especially as Maryland was making that run to get into single digits. They did. They were able to right the ship. And I think that's the one thing that the fans enjoy about watching this team over the last few years is that they know they're going to fight. They're going and they're going to put effort on the floor. And that's what they see every night, that this group plays. So kudos to them going to Maryland. Huge win, for the women. So let's get us on out of here, Kathy.
Oops. Sorry, I was on the wrong course.
All right, coming up next, we will return on Sunday after the Ohio State game. Tip time is noon, as we said earlier, Eastern, 11 Central, 11 a.m. Central. So we'll be on around 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 Central. That game, again, is on FS1. AC Radio will be on tomorrow at their normal time. And if you're coming to the Assembly Call meetup on Saturday, February 3rd, Kathy will definitely be there. That's at the Upstairs Brew Pub. You can see us there. I'm still kind of up in the air. I have some radio duties here. The Rensselaer Central Lady Bombers are playing in the sectional this week. All the teams in the state are playing. I have the radio duties for the Rensselaer Central teams, and so they will be playing Friday night. And they're going to be favored to win. But if they don't go their way, then I will be able to make it on Saturday. Otherwise, if they win, I won't be able to. And Kathy will be down there, and you guys can say hello to her. But hopefully, I can get down there to see all of our fans and meet up with everybody but if you're going to be there, Kathy will definitely be there. By the way, Kathy, when you heading out?
We're going to leave here Friday morning. So if you're also out Friday evening, I'll be in there for the Back Home Network team dinner Friday night, but then we're going to be going out probably to Nick's or upstairs or whatever. So keep an eye on the Assembly Call Twitter account. I'm sure that Jared would probably post it out there. But if you're out and about in Bloomington, come try to find us on Friday night. So I'll be there. Yeah. And then Sunday I'll be broadcasting from my mom's house down in Southern Indiana. So we'll see how her setup is for me when I get down there. So I'm sure it'll be fine. I've done it before. So yeah, looking forward to the whole weekend. I haven't been back to Bloomington for 2 years now. So happy to get back and get on campus and hit some of our favorite places again.
If you want to see us do the show live and be a part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@BackHomeNetwork. That's the @ symbol. So youtube.com/@BackHomeNetwork. You can be a part of our private community as well. Find out more at assemblycall.substack.com. Special thanks to John Ringer of Rig Design for rigdesign.com for designing our logos. A big thank you to Bob Thompson for our music that you've heard throughout the broadcast. And we want to thank all of you for listening, wherever you hear us, whether it's the live YouTube feed or your favorite podcast site. We'll be back to talk IU hoops again with you on Sunday. Until then, keep your elbow in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers.
All right.
Another
Did that
fun
music sound weird to you? Or was it, maybe it's just me?
It sounded all right to me. You hit it a little early. Yes, that's fine. I do that crap all the time, so I'm not going to hold that against you. So, but anyway, so
That's funny.
Hey,
Cool.
Thanks everybody in the
All
Workaholics. We had a good number in here again tonight, so it's good to see everybody in here.
Yeah, thanks for everyone being here. And yeah, we were nice and long again tonight, but the Ohio State game is going to be a really great matchup. So hopefully everyone's able to watch it and then join us afterwards. I think it's hopefully going to be a good game. No blowouts this time.
And there's no football this weekend. Just come watch
excuses.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. All right, Jeff, I think I'll let you go and we'll get out of this, and we'll see you guys on Thursday or Sunday. Take care.
See you guys Sunday.